Give me a few minutes and I'll make your thumbnails dangerously clickable using one simple example. This thumbnail right here. This is from the creator Tara Green, and there's so many things happening in this thumbnail making it so powerful. So let's break it down together, and you can take these lessons and potentially implement them for your own channel and your own thumbnails as well. So first off, I want to talk about the number one most important thing if you want to guarantee getting clickable thumbnails, okay? This is the thing, the one rule you have to follow. And this one rule is it has to be data backed, okay? What does that mean? Any thumbnail that you make has to have data on YouTube or off YouTube showing that your thumbnail concept has hooked people before. Luckily, this is pretty easy to do because there are bajillions of videos on YouTube and even more bajillions of videos on all of the internet. And so what was the data backing going on here? Well, I'll paste it in right here so you can see. So what was the data backing? Well, it was this right over here. This thumbnail in a completely different niche, in the Lego niche, did 115 million views. But it didn't only do 115 million views. It also did 77 million views with the exact same concept here, 57 million views with the exact same concept here, and then a variation did 51 million views. So this thumbnail follows one of my main rules, which is data backed, and also a secondary rule I have, which is at least 2 to 3 data points, okay? There's 3 data points showing that this thumbnail could have done well. But he did do a couple other things really well, which I think you should take into consideration. So number one here is that he looked outside of his niche for inspiration, okay? And why is this important? Well, most creators look only in their own niche for inspiration, and this leads to them never innovating. And if you don't innovate, you're never the leader of the pack. And if you're never leader of the pack, you don't get the most views. The hack is to look at similar niches, but that aren't the same, to find fresh inspiration. And he looked at the Lego niche and he found this idea that he was able to do, and he was the first to bring it, and it did 22 million views, which crushed for him. This also has another benefit, which is that it's not a straight rip. On YouTube, you don't want to be ripping people because one, it's less novel, it's less unique, and if it's less unique, you're less likely to stand out and get clicks. And then second, it's also not very ethical. Now this thumbnail in particular is pretty similar, but he does change quite a few things, in my opinion, to make it even better. A really cool thing he did here that I think is really smart is that he made the gap a little bit bigger. So this is how big the gap is here. And as you can see here, it looks a little bit smaller. And this is escalating the danger or the obstacle that the ants here have to overcome in order to get their goal, in this case, the strawberries. But he also does something really, really smart here, which is he has this ant bridge thing going on here, which is really interesting to look at. The ants are all holding on to each other to create a bridge. And this is really interesting, but don't just take my say so. There's actually data on YouTube showing that this does well. So let's go over here. Check this out. 8.7 million views 7 years ago. Ants build a bridge to invade the wasp. So do you see what he did here? He took the composition from the Lego niche, and then he took an ant bridge from his own niche, and he combined them to make a brand new, very fresh, and very data-backed and interesting thumbnail. Already, you can see the amount of thinking going on in a top YouTuber's head. Now, is he logically thinking through each step like this? Yes, but the better you get at YouTube, from what I've seen, the more the steps happen instantaneously, and you're checking off boxes as you go through making the thumbnail. The next thing I would say that he did better than the original one here is the pop of color. When you're just scrolling through YouTube, that red grabs your attention. It's actually one of the reasons that watermelons crush in thumbnails. That bright red is so eye-catching. It crushes on every social media platform. The strawberry serves the same purpose here. The rest of the thumbnail is pretty neutral color. We have some brown over here, white, and then some black. And then this thumbnail did have some red, but it's such a small part of the thumbnail that it doesn't really grab your attention that much. So having way more red, having 3 strawberries instead of 1, makes it pop out even more. Another kind of a cool thing here is that he doesn't have 2 strawberries or 4 strawberries. He has 3, which is apparently some psychological principle humans like. I actually haven't verified this, but humans apparently tend to like things in threes, the thing they like. So take that with a grain of salt, but I've heard that around, floating around. In my case, I do like things in 3. So anecdotally, I think it does stand through. Now, this thumbnail does something really, really important that I've never seen anybody talk about on the internet. So we definitely need to talk about this. When you're making a thumbnail, clarity is one of the most important things you need to think of. Like, does the viewer understand what's going on, what the purpose of things going on is. And with this thumbnail, if we go back here, this is a good example. It did 9 million views, but it's not immediately clear why this ant bridge is happening, right? That happens in the title here. But just looking at the thumbnail in a glance, you don't really understand, one, what this is. It's not super clear it's ants, mostly because it's kind of lower quality. And then second, why is this happening? Versus having the strawberries here immediately makes it clear. It gives a purpose to the ant bridge, which viewers love. Thumbnails that give the viewer a deeper insight into what's going on overperform like crazy. So you can imagine if we didn't have the strawberries here, this ant bridge would be a lot more random. Why are they crossing this random gap? That doesn't make sense. And this is another escalation here that TerraGreen, the creator, did on here. There's no really end goal here. There's just a gap that the car has to overcome just because. But the ants have a clear goal, which adds another question for the viewer and that makes them want to click on the video. So right now we have a few questions. We have, holy shit, I need to see that for real. So they need to see this action, right? Second is, how did this come about? Do they achieve their goal is the third one. Do they achieve their goal? 3 different questions here already from one thumbnail, and all of this happens in milliseconds. And so it's no surprise that this got 22 million views. Anyways, peace.